Welcome back to 10 with Ken. I'm Ken Steele. We're starting our third season of this webcast with my 10th annual look back at the year in review, 2016 in 6 words. In our previous 2 episodes, we looked at the proliferation of free college tuition programs across North America, at the rise of anti-intellectualism and protectionism, and at some of the implications for international education. If you missed them, feel free to go back and watch them first. We'll wait for you right here. This week, we look at one last defining trend for 2016, the fall and rise of for-profit fortunes. Let's take 10 and take stock. For decades now, massive for-profit schools like the University of Phoenix and Kaplan University have been rewriting the rules of higher education and transforming the landscape.
A few years back, in the height of the economic downturn, ITT Tech and other for-profit colleges became the darlings of Wall Street, their profits seemingly recession-proof.
Last year was their annus horribilis, but also likely marks the turning point to much better times ahead. For 8 years, the Obama administration aggressively prosecuted for-profit colleges and universities for deceptive marketing, fraudulent enrolments, and high levels of student loan default.
Federal student loans are the lifeblood of the for-profit schools. Although their students comprise only 10% of the college-going public, they consume almost a quarter of all federal financial aid. But on average, the debt load for-profit students is more than twice that of students at traditional schools.
Collectively, they were receiving more than $20 billion in student loans and $4 billion in Pell Grants, so the Government Accountability Office launched an investigation. The GAO's undercover agents caught recruiters encouraging students to lie on government loan applications.
Frankly, in my opinion, they don't need to know how much cash you have. That's why you do a tax return.
I didn't know.
You're not supporting anyone else or anything?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, with 2 people, with 2 kids and you, it'd be 3 people, and I'll make the corrections according to what you're telling me.
Major online universities like Phoenix were apparently targeting homeless shelters and encouraging students with little chance of academic success to apply for substantial financial aid.
I always said they had a bad business model. The business model was go out and recruit the poorest students. Why? They get the most Pell Grants and they get the most loans.
There was a Senate hearing into for-profit recruitment practices and new, tougher regulations.
15 of the 15 schools that GAO investigated found instances of fraud, deceptive practices, or made misleading statements to prospective students.
Between 2011 and 2015, for-profit universities saw a decline of 30% or more in enrollments. In just a 5-year period, the University of Phoenix alone lost 250,000 students and laid off more than 1,000 employees. Its parent company, Apollo Group, retreated from Canada, closing Meritus University in Fredericton in order to focus its energies on defending the home front. Obama's so-called gainful employment legislation sought to keep student loan payments below 8% of a graduate's total earnings, and would withdraw financial aid eligibility from an institution that graduated students with unmanageable levels of debt.
It became clear that Corinthian was engaged in extremely predatory behavior and conduct, and so we sued.
Corinthian colleges faced legal challenges from federal and state agencies, and finally announced in April 2015 that they would be closing more than 100 campuses across North America, including Everest College and CDI Institute. In August 2016, ITT Technical Institute lost its accreditation and declared bankruptcy within a month, closing 130 campuses and laying off 8,000 employees.
And the feds finally said too much risk for both students and taxpayers and introduced several sanctions that were really the end for the company.
Last September, Washington revoked the accreditation of ASICS, the Accrediting Council of Independent Colleges and Schools, after 105 years.
After the ITT Tech colleges shut down, well, I got to tell you, the federal government started taking a closer look at the schools under the ACICS umbrella, and boy, they didn't like what they were seeing.
For years, there had been concerns about Corinthian colleges. There were exposés, investigations, lawsuits. How many federal and state agencies need to file lawsuits against one of your colleges before your organization takes a second look at whether that school should be eligible for accreditation and, most importantly, for federal money.
ASICS accredited hundreds of for-profit and distance education colleges and universities. In January, in the final days of the Obama administration, the Department of Education announced that more than 800 programs had failed the gainful employment rule, and therefore were at risk of losing financial aid eligibility. Not surprisingly, 98% of them were at for-profit institutions. But it seems pretty likely that 2016 marks the nadir of fortunes for America's for-profit colleges and universities. President-elect Trump hasn't articulated many higher ed policies, but it seems obvious that the founder of Trump University will have sympathies with other for-profits.
This was not a university, and in New York we are a little sensitive. You can't just put up a sign saying Scarborough Hospital, Scarborough Universities.
After 5 years using the university label without accreditation, the courts forced a name change, but Trump University was closing by that point anyway.
Now we all know that President-elect Trump's experience with higher education was to create a fake university.
Shortly after the November election, Trump settled 3 outstanding lawsuits for $25 million. The president-elect has made it clear that he's a strong supporter of school choice and charter schools, promising to repurpose about a third of the federal education budget.
My first budget will immediately add an additional federal investment of $20 billion toward school choice. This will be done by reprioritizing existing federal dollars. We have to reprioritize.
For higher ed, it seems likely that the Trump administration will deregulate the for-profit sector, or at least relax the enforcement of existing regulations. Analysts predict that he may grant a reprieve to ASICS. And as for the 800 programs that failed the gainful employment test last month, just 2 days later, the website was temporarily unavailable due to scheduled maintenance. In the past, Trump has declared that he would completely eliminate the Department of Education, possibly eliminating the National Center for Education Statistics and the Pell Grant program as well. Anything his administration does to reduce or relax the federal government's power over financial aid accreditation will remove the teeth from other federal legislation like Title IX, which enforces gender equity in athletics. It's also notable that Trump has declared strong support for competency-based degrees, which will likely continue to gain momentum throughout his administration. Trump's nominee for Education Secretary, Betsy DeVos, is a longtime reformer of elementary and secondary schools, and a champion of school choice, charter schools, and voucher systems. The Democratic opponents, of course, would say that she has worked tirelessly to privatize and defund public education.
In a 2015 speech on education, you were pretty blunt, quote, "Government really sucks." And you called the public school system a, quote, "dead end."
Her father-in-law founded Amway, the quintessential example of American entrepreneurship. She's likely to promote privatization, performance-based government funding, and legislation to further reduce the bargaining power of faculty and staff unions. She's been a supporter of religious schools and free speech on campus, and an opponent of political correctness, affirmative action, and same-sex marriage.
The ayes have it.
Betsy DeVos was approved by the Senate committee by just one vote after a fiery discussion about her qualifications to be Secretary of Education.
It is hard to imagine a candidate less qualified or more dangerous.
I think she'll be an excellent education secretary.
Decades of growth in for-profit higher ed were essentially undone under 2 terms of Obama's administration. Whether you think that was a good thing or not, the Trump administration is poised to reverse much of the regulation that has held back the multinational expansion ambitions of for-profits. In Canada and around the world, we need to prepare ourselves for a resurgence of corporate players in higher education. A major shift in the landscape lies ahead. So, over the course of the past 3 episodes, we've looked at the world of higher ed as I saw it in 2016, boiled down to 6 words. The Fort McMurray fire affected Canada's economy and post-secondary institutions across the region, most notably Keanu College. State and provincial governments across North America signaled a new openness to free tuition programs, at least for students with lower household incomes, and at least for 2 years of community college. Populist movements and disinformation campaigns significantly undermined the credibility of experts and universities in a post-truth era. The liberal arts in particular will face intensified attacks from anti-intellectual politicians, media, and foreign powers who prefer poorly educated citizens.
I love the poorly educated.
Champions of internationalization will face greater challenges than ever in a world marked by growing nationalism and isolationism. Canada will likely become more attractive as a study destination, but will face immense economic challenge as well. Saudi Arabia has become a much more challenging place for international recruiters and satellite campuses alike. And last but certainly not least, under the Trump administration, we can expect to see a resurgence in the for-profit sector, with gradual growth among major online providers and a reinvestment in learning technology platforms. These episodes have just been the start of 10 with Ken's annual Year in Review. Next time, we turn to campus controversies and challenges with our annual look at higher ed headaches. So you don't miss it, take a moment now to subscribe on the platform of your choice. You can watch this webcast on YouTube, iTunes, Dailymotion, Vimeo, Facebook, Tumblr, or by RSS feed. If you prefer just to listen, now we also release 10 with Ken as an audio podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, TuneIn, and Stitcher Radio. You can find links to all of these platforms and an email subscription form too on the Eduvation website. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. 10 with Ken is a production of Eduvation Inc., copyright 2017. I'm available for conference keynotes, campus PD events, board retreats, and committee workshops, in person or now virtually too. For more information, please visit www.eduvation.guru or 10withken.com. We're starting our 10th with my look back at the year in the rise of protectionism. We're still recording, we still have audio, that's good. The GAO's undercover officers caught, Corinthian colleges faced legal challenges. Is that what I said? Yeah. Legal challenges from federal and state agencies. But it seems pretty likely that 2016 marks the nadir of fortunes. I've already forgot. I'm getting tired. For higher ed, it seems likely that the Trump administration will deregulate for-profit education, the for-profit sector. The liberal arts in particular can anticipate intensified attacks. Next time we turn to campus challenges and controversies. That's it.